Please welcome to the Financial Brand Forum, co-publisher of the Financial Brand and publisher of the Digital Banking Report, Mr. Jim Marous.
Hello again. I feel like I spent half the day, or three-quarters of the day talking between, we've been recording some podcasts, we've had a couple, we had a panel discussion earlier, and it's great to see so many people still engaged and still involved at 3 o'clock on the first day. I've had the last event on a last stage event on a pod or on an event like this, and Wednesday's not a good day. So this is good to be on Monday. For those of you who kept track of what this session was, unfortunately, Don McDonald from MX wasn't able to make it today. So I decided that I'd help fill in and talk about a subject that's near and dear to my heart. And I'm sure it's near and dear to most of your hearts from the standpoint of really understanding more about what's expected when we're talking about personalization. You know, it can be very easily said that right now, change is happening faster than ever before, and that it will never happen this slowly again. So if you're waiting for the train to stop at the station, you're going to be waiting a long time, and you're going to fall further and further behind. You know, it can go without saying that COVID changed everything as it relates to the consumer and it relates to banking. More than ever, the consumer had a priority of save me time, save me money, and make my day easier. Just think about what your own lives are like. Think of how many things you changed because it was so important to be able to engage, to be able to order groceries, to be able to buy the essentials without going to the store. And even for the simplicity of going to a restaurant and paying with a mobile app as opposed to having to remember to bring cash or a card. COVID changed the consumer, and it changed banking. More than ever, we have to find ways to engage with the consumer on a personal level quickly and easily. We think about technology and we think about personalization, but really, technology, while being the key agent of disruption, is not the only part of disruption. You know, it's hard to believe that if a person is 25 years or younger today, they have known nothing but digital. As they grew up, they knew nothing but what they could do on their phone. Banking has changed, but it's not just for the younger consumer. We have to put out of our minds the assumptions we have about different market segments. As we're trying to personalize, we have to get rid of the biases, such as younger people all use digital. Not always true. Or that the senior group will not embrace digital. I can attest to the fact that some of the most digital people in the country are seniors, especially since COVID. Many people use Zoom and FaceTime more than ever, if never before. They learned how to use deposits doing your mobile app. We have to remember that the segmentation now is not about the age or the income. It's how they prefer to bank. Segmentation should be around the way the consumer wants to engage. Again, look at the simplicity. You know, when we talk about banking now, we have to transform from legacy thinking and processes. We have to build from the back office forward. If you're simply trying to change the mobile app so it looks pretty or so that you can do an easy transaction, that's not enough. More than ever, we have to say, how can we do the back office to make life easier, to make banking easier, but most importantly today, to make banking better. Now, what's the difference between easier and better? You heard from Jay Bear earlier today. It's not just about speed and simplicity. It's empathy. Are you going to help me be a better steward of my money? Are you going to be giving me the tools to be a better financial steward? They expect that of us. Why? Because everything in their lives has changed. So what are the essentials of digital banking transformation? First and foremost, we have to remember that if you aren't working on digital banking transformation, you will be left behind. COVID made it so that everything we had to do in banking changed. We have 7 major components to digital banking transformation. Every one of them are important from the consumer perspective and from our bank's perspective. First and foremost, data and analytics is the foundation of everything. You don't have to be perfect with data and analytics, but data and analytics is going to drive the engine that's going to make our digital banking experiences better. Number 2, you have to simplify all engagements. We have to make it so that being able to talk with you, to be able to talk to you, is really going to revolve around how easy to make it. You have to foster an innovation mindset that's incremental innovations, not just automatic and big innovations. And they've got to be done quickly. We also have to realize that when we're looking at digital banking transformation, we're looking at investing in new technologies. But technologies, again, is not the only requirement. It is important that we think about technologies as it relates to the human interaction. We have to create new back office experiences. What that means is if your back office is still analog and you're trying to deliver digital, it's not going to work. You'll be faking digital. 6, we have to reskill our workforce. We have to bring people on board that can help us in the digital transformation journey. Oh, and by the way, we have a lot of those people in the offices today. We have to engage them to make sure they know they're part of the process. And finally, but most importantly, we have to provide digital leadership at every level of the organization. As I'm doing podcasts, as I'm doing articles, I'm realizing the biggest difference between the winners and the losers. The winners have leadership that embrace change, are willing to take risks, and are willing to disrupt themselves and their organizations. As I mentioned, experiences have changed more than ever before in every way. We're taking a lot of them for granted. The way we check into the airport, the way we use Clear, the way we use technology against other technologies, the non-checkout process at Amazon stores, Whole Foods stores, I should say. The ability to buy things as soon as you know you need them from your phone, and to have recommendations coming to you about what to buy next. We have to realize that also we're having new tools for digital transformation, new ways of engaging, new ways of personalizing experiences. How many of you are wearing a watch today? Just so you know, if I asked that question 7 years ago, there'd be 3 old men in the audience that would raise their hands. Why do we do that? Because we want access to data. We want access to technology. We want access to experiences that make our lives easier. It's going to keep on changing. As we're looking at the metaverse, we're going to have new ways of engaging. So not only do you have to look at how do I personalize experiences, but how do I deliver them on the channel they want most? Maybe it's how can we take health data and combine it with banking data to make it even a heightened personalized experience. I want to get rewarded for what I do athletically. My bank wants to find different ways of engaging me. There will be an integration of those two. We also have to realize, more than ever, consumers are willing to transfer their information if they get something in return. Salesforce found that 67% of consumers are willing to give up personal information if they can get a better experience. This is why Amazon has done so well. The consumer trusts them with their data. And what did they do with it? They make the engagement more powerful. They learn from everything I'm doing or you're doing from the data they collect. Consumers only have problems with personalization when we don't use it. You know, about 12 years ago, Disney introduced the bands. They used to track where you went in the park. They used that to get a better idea of how each family interacted around the area. But also, because you gave the name and they put the names on the bands, and they got information about the people, the characters, the ones that could talk, will come up to your child and go, "Hey, Susie, are you liking the park today?" That made the child's day and probably scared the parent to death. But think of how interactions have changed. You know, we talk about it often, but any of you who have children, or let's make it even more specific, any one of you that have teenage daughters or daughters in their late 20s, who would have thought 5 years ago that you'd say, "I'm going to feel the best if you get in a car from a complete stranger, having drank too much that night, to bring you home"? Or let's take that a step further. I want to stay in a house that somebody else lived in a week ago and 5 other people lived in a week before that, and I rent that as opposed to a hotel room. These are personalized experiences. But also, during all these experiences, data is being collected along the way so that the next time they can do better. Any of you have any of you used Airbnb experiences? Okay, so when I would travel internationally, which hasn't happened for a while, I would sign into Airbnb experiences, and more they got to know what I liked to do in the cities I visited. They knew I'd like to go to people's houses to have meals that were really, really authentic to the area I was in. They knew I liked scooters to travel around the city. They knew I liked urban artwork and to be able to see graffiti from different parts of the world. They would take this data, and that would help sell what Airbnb location or residence I'd be renting. If you're collecting data, you have to use that data. You have to take the data you've collected and apply it. Now, it doesn't have to be with AI. That may not be the best experience. It may not be the best starting point. I suggest that if you had to prioritize how to personalize an experience, the first thing you have to do is go for the low-hanging fruit. Can you take data and make it so the opening of an account is easier? How many of you have an Apple Card? Okay, so those who raised your hand, was that not the most frightening experience in the world on how fast it was? For those of you who have not gotten an Apple Card, the first screen says, "Tell me if the data we have on you is correct." It completely filled in every personal part of information simply from what's on the Apple phone, which we can have access to through different sources to say, is this all right? Confirm or reject. Second screen, the last 4 digits of your social security number. So basically, the first step of know your customer. The third step, what is your annual income? Now, that was not even needed by Apple, but they want to make sure, again, from a know your customer perspective, if the amount was close to what the credit bureau said it was, they knew it was you. They also were tracking at the time, where are you? Where are you doing this input? What location? And is this a normal location for this phone and this person? And finally, they showed the trend, the rules and regs, which basically we all know how we go through those. We just do this and push. And then immediately they go, you received an Apple Card with X amount of available credit. Oh, and by the way, it's already in your Apple Wallet. Now, we may just see that as simplicity, but the reality is what they have done there is they've used data and analytics to build an exceptional experience. And just to take that one step further, they then said, do you want a metal card? And you think to yourself, I didn't even want the credit I got now, but I'll take the metal card. It comes in 2 days with a brown paper wrapper that you simply tap your phone against to authorize the card, as opposed to 16 taps on a phone to put in your account number. So in other words, in most credit card experiences today, you have to authorize the card with 16 touches. I did not touch the phone 16 times to get the Apple Card. That is what the consumer's expectation is. They want you to know them to the degree that can give them a better experience. As Jay said, speed, simplicity, and empathy is the new definition of convenience. A customer cares less about you closing a branch than you not being available when they need help. Empathy is a very important word, and everybody defines it somewhat differently, but at the end of the day, are you on my side, or are you simply trying to cut costs? The consumer can make a decision immediately on whether or not they want to do business with you. They will make that decision without you knowing it. I said earlier in a session today that, what's really frightening is most of you at your financial institutions are going to find that your attrition rate is maybe about 1% to 3%, and you're saying, yeah, I'm doing good. The problem is, I'm going to ask it of the group, and for those of you who are part of my last group and answer the same question, I apologize. How many of you have closed a major financial relationship in the last 5 years? Closed one. I got about a handful, a little more than I thought. People are getting a little bit more antsy. How many of you have opened a new financial relationship from any vendor over the last 2 years? Everybody, or almost everybody. What that means is, while you think there's no attrition, the reality is the relationships get unwound. We all know what the definition of open banking is, what it should feel like. We're building our own open banking experiences within ourselves. I have a primary bank that's a major bank from the West Coast for my personal account. I have a bank in Ohio that has my business account. But if you ask me where my real transactions, where my real engagement is, it's with Acorns on the personal side, because they help me with my savings, and PayPal on my business side. Why PayPal? Well, when I make a disbursement to one of my contractors, it's always on PayPal. When I get receipts, it's on PayPal. PayPal knows more about me than my primary small business bank. So what happens is, PayPal regularly offers me bridge lines of credit because they know my transactions, they know my business. My current bank, if I went to my current bank and tried to open a new loan, it would take probably about 45 minutes to do the application in the branch. It would take about 4 days to get an approval. It'd take another 5 days to get disbursement. In that amount of time, I could have gotten my PayPal loan the same day and paid it off before they even did it. And you know what? I'm willing to pay a little bit more for that speed and simplicity. Again, what I'm giving these examples for is because this is what we're fighting against. We're fighting against players that are building better, personalized experiences around data collected at every touch point. Obviously, the most successful recommendation engine is done by Amazon. They've been doing it since their existence. We take it for granted. We take Google for granted. But Amazon especially. If I order something from Amazon before they offer it to me, they're knowing right away, don't offer Jim green, pink, orange, or a bright blue. They know pretty much that if they offer me something in red or black, they got a buyer. They also know I like name brands, I'm willing to pay a little bit more for quality, and I want it tomorrow. I'm going to be here through Friday in Las Vegas. But my wife knows if I was to buy something today, I'd ask for it to be delivered tomorrow, if not the same day. Why? Just the way I roll. Everybody rolls in different ways, but Amazon understands all that. You know, when you're looking for something to shop at Amazon, it's not very often you have to go like this. They usually get it within the first 3 or 4 hits. That not only simplifies the process, but then they come back and go, by the way, if you want next day delivery for free, If you can buy $10 more worth of product, that'll be coming your way. In fact, we'll even get it there tonight. Speed, simplicity, empathy. What's really special about Amazon is they not only collect data, but they use it in a responsible way that none of us, hardly any of us, reject. If I could see a show of hands, how many of you have Amazon Prime? Yeah, everybody. How many of you, when you really think about it, you go, I got it because of free shipping, but they get free shipping to everybody, but you don't cancel it. They're just now raised the prices again, and none of us want to consider canceling it because we think, you know what, it's making my day easier. Not that it would be any worse if I didn't have Prime, and then we'll make up excuses. Well, I like the Prime movies. I like Thursday Night Football. Or I like some of these other additives, but the reality is we do it because they treat us with respect. They use our data with respect in almost every case. What's also interesting about Amazon, when you talk about empathy, any of you tried to make a return of a Christmas gift last year and found out they didn't want your return back, but they were going to give you what you wanted? Now, what kind of impression did that leave you? Oh, and by the way, how does that relate to banking? How many banks will say, you know what, I know you had an overdraft, we're just going to let it go without some kind of rule or some kind of stipulation? The reality is Amazon's done the return on investment on you and said, it doesn't pay for us to return things. I realized that now it's 9 years ago with my Amazon Alexa video device. I think it was like $250 back then. My first one didn't work. They said, tell you what, it doesn't work, return it, we'll send you out a new one. Now, in Amazon style, the next one came the next day, and my old one was still sitting on my floor, not yet returned. And I said, what should I do with it? They said, just keep it. It's going to cost too much to return it. It's going to cost too much to repair it. That's probably not the best way to go. But boy, that story has made it to every show I've done since then. Because it showed how they figured out the customer relationship was more important. It's also interesting, Hulu and Netflix. How cool is it, compared to what we used to do, to use some of the streaming services that will continually work and say, what do you want to watch next? We have a house in Cleveland where I live most of the time, and we have DirecTV. In Florida, we have a small little place, but it's got Netflix. And when I get down there, I realize, oh my gosh, I don't have to push record. I don't have to go through all the things I recorded. I can find them anytime I want. Now, that works really well until you get into a little cycle of watching one specific thing, and you realize they're going to feed you everything. I got in a cycle watching how pools are built in I think it's called Lagoons and something. It's on, I think, Disney. And now I'm being fed all these pool building things. I'm not building a pool. It's just interesting stuff. But what's interesting is it makes it so my wife can watch what she wants. I watch what I want. It prompts me on news every night because it knows that's what I do. On DirecTV, I got to remember, geez, do we have enough different TVs in the house that I can push it and get recorded? And what things my wife wants to watch versus what I want to watch, hope they're not at a different time. But again, what we're doing in personalization and what we're doing with AI and what we're doing with just basic customer care and personalization is these are the companies right here who are defining the future. They're determining and they're showing us what can be done with data. The consumer's expectations raise exponentially. As you look at the different players, the major players in the marketplace today, these are the people that are setting the tone for everything else. Discover card story. My son wanted his first credit card, and he said, we were at a baseball game, seventh inning, beginning of seventh inning. Remember it vividly. It's like 4 years ago. I remember it was like yesterday. He goes, Dad, I've done some research. I think I wanted a Discover card as my first credit card. I've got to establish some credit. No problem. He starts the process. He goes, Dad, they want to know my annual or my monthly income. And it's summertime. So I said, put down your monthly income. They'll multiply by 12, which will give you 9 months of credit that you're not really doing because this is an internship. He filled it out. We were in the seventh inning stretch, which is between the innings. So we've gone one inning, half an inning. He goes, Dad, I got it. Simplicity is a form of personalization. So as we try to build those good, personalized experiences, think speed, think empathy. We also realize that when you look at, I mentioned PayPal, we all know about Instacart, how once you train it, it does really well on your behalf. I've talked about Acorns. All these companies build experiences on the data, transaction data. Data analytics has the power, it powers innovation, optimization, and decision making. How many of you know your shop's really in order when it comes to data? That's the least number of hands I've seen all day. Nobody's is. The good news is we have solution providers in the show this week that can help you no matter what your data looks like. When we're looking at personalizing experiences, please leverage the companies that are here today, because every one of them, while you think your situation is unique, every one of the solution providers have worked with companies like you and have done workarounds around data. That's an old excuse, a legacy excuse we have to avoid. I know a lot of you in the audience are the providers I'm speaking of, but that's the last thing you want to hear is, oh, we're going to wait until our data's in order. Guys, it's never going to be in order. Leverage the companies that can do that. In addition, use the data and analytics to fix your back office. This may sound like a digital transformation speech, but really, it's getting down to personalization and experiences and engagement. Purchase data provides the most powerful ability to personalize the experience. I look back over the years and say, it's too bad we gave up those machines at the retailer, that we didn't want any part of it because it was just a messy thing for banks to get into. But now, our financial institutions only know when somebody buys from Amazon, it shows Amazon. They don't know what we bought. So it gets harder to personalize experiences. I had an interview, a podcast interview today with the CMO of Ally Bank. And it was really interesting because she said, we had the same challenge. Checking accounts are not that big at Ally with overall customer base. We have a lot of different relationships, but we built a savings product where somebody can put money into a savings account and allocate it to different, I'm going to call them envelopes, for different goals. She goes, those goals tell us what the customer wants. What we want to move towards is not better experiences, but greater engagement. We want engagement that makes it so a consumer wants to use our platform more often because they want to be there, or because we're going to offer them solutions based on the time and place of where they are. So at Ally Bank's situation, if somebody says, we're planning for a summer vacation, they go out of their way to communicate with the consumer along the way saying, you're a little bit behind your pace you set. And that gives them a chance to talk to the consumer. When they get really close, I talked to Simone, she says, what we do is we actually give them the last few dollars and say, we helped you hit your goal. What kind of relationship did that make? What kind of partnership did that make? All on a personalized basis, but in a different way than we normally see it. It's almost a if then this. What we also have to look at is overall, just being digital is not enough. We're finding out more and more. We just did a panel with Dom Venturo from US Bank. He talked about now that we've moved beyond normal digital and simplicity and making things easier, our next stage is how do we make it more human? How do we make the digital assistant something the consumer relies on to make banking better? These services, by the way, I doubt if there's many financial institutions here in the top 5 in the country or in the world. This is where your partners come in handy also. Building these digital engagement platforms that can make it so the consumer, you're actually going to the consumer before they know they have a need and do it in a humanized way. Bank of America has had an amazing success with Erica. US Bank is starting to get some really good success rates with their digital assistant. We need that because we need to be able to work with consumers and say, we want this assistant to help you do banking better. We also, part of the personalization process is innovation. How do we move forward the engagement with the consumer? Two things I can tell you all. Number one, we need to innovate at speed in an incremental way. What I mean by that is, instead of waiting for that next big thing that you'll say, we have this on our goal to get done in 2023. What we have to do is move toward an environment where we say, this is what we're going to do by March. We have to do it faster than ever before. We don't have to have the next big thing, because as was mentioned in our innovation panel, is that as soon as you make that next big thing, somebody can copy it. It's better to make a lot of incremental changes that the consumer can feel. Oh, and by the way, we did discuss this before, but just because you build it doesn't mean they'll come. You need to reach out to the consumer and say, by the way, you now can do this. We need to realize that at the foundational level, I love AI, I love the concept. Most of us are not there yet. We need to do the basics better. The consumer has no tolerance for a non-personalized 15-minute account opening or loan application process. 5 minutes or less. And that 5 minutes or less has to be implemented in a way that you are collecting data that can be used in the future. When I'm talking about incremental improvements, I was in Shenzhen, China in 2020, beginning of 2020, before COVID shut everything down. And WeBank, which is the biggest digital bank in the world, I was in their innovation platform or their data platform where you can sit in the control panel and see all these transactions happen. He goes, we have now gotten it down to where our people can come up with an idea and we'll be implementing it within 10 to 14 days max. Our average is 12 days now. Now, what does that say? That says that we're always iterating. We're not trying to make that next big thing. I get frustrated when I hear a bank, and it's a very major bank, about 9 months ago, 10 months ago now, say, we've been working on a new digital mobile app for our consumers. It's going to be implemented at the end of 2022. We've been working on it for 8 months. Guys, number one, I don't know why you announced something before it's out there. And number two, I get worried about the first 10 months of that innovation process if it's already outdated. We need to move faster, and we need to make it so that every consumer believes that that app was made for them. We need to build experiences where we can recommend services to the consumer, but not by selling. Content is king. If you can get the consumer to continually go to your app because they want to, you've built a personalized experience and you're collecting information. If you have content that talks about how to pay off a student loan or what to do when you're buying a house, and they get into that platform and they get into that content and they know it's there, that's your data platform. That's what's replacing transaction data when you can't have transaction data. You know, at the end of the day, it gets down to culture and leadership. If your leaders do not believe that they need to change, nothing will happen. Unfortunately, if you're in a mid-sized financial institution, and I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for this one, but if you're in a mid-sized financial institution, you're probably led by a group of white men that played golf together 20, 30 years ago. They have a couple people that came into the group before, after that, but the problem is they've never seen anything but success. Therefore, they have no pain. How many of you have been to the doctor and the doctor says you have to do this, this, this? And you go, okay, and you do whatever they say for about a month, and then you say, I'm done. Then you go the next year, same thing said. But the third year, they go, by the way, we see something on your x-ray and it's not good. It's amazing how you can make change happen when there's pain. As organizations, we have to make change to make the customer's experience better with personalization without waiting for the pain, because it's happening. People are attriting, invisibly attriting. We also have to realize, as I mentioned, that the biggest and smallest banks in our research for the Digital Bank Report, we find that the biggest and smallest banks are doing the best. Smallest banks have leaders that are willing to change things up. The big banks have money. It's the middle. It's all the rest of us. They have to move forward. So the future of personalization, AI, marketing, automation, and data. Number one, simplicity before personalization. You need to get simplicity right before you personalize experiences. To get the best experience, you need to fix the back office first. You can't have an analog back office that has a lot of legacy thinking where people say, oh, we've always done it this way, because you'll never get a front of the screen, top of the screen experience that's strong. Find specialists for collaboration. Don't go it alone. There are a lot of solution providers out there in the marketplace that are here this week that can help you get to the point you want to get faster than you could ever get there yourselves. In addition, they will avoid the pitfalls that most organizations see. Next, focus on speed and scalability. You need to process things faster than we ever have. No longer annual plans, quarterly plans, or monthly plans. We have to move from experiences to engagement. What I mean by that is, experiences like satisfaction is somewhat nebulous. Engagement means, how often does a consumer use your app for things other than checking balances or making a payment? How can we get them more ingrained in using their platform to be financially educated, to do other things than just payments or transfers? We have to build loyalty with content. That's what I was talking about, that the content you can provide the consumer around how they can manage their money better is a way to build the engagement that makes it so they don't look elsewhere. And finally, eliminate legacy excuses. We continue to hear people say, yeah, compliance, yeah, legal, yeah, budget. We don't have the people, we don't have the money. Let's call BS when it needs to be called and find a workaround. This is the key to success. As I referenced, at the end of the day, it's how quickly can you make the success happen. You know, financial services, as I mentioned, has never changed this fast. It will never change this slowly again. The consumer wants you to know them, understand them, and reward them for their banking services with you. This will require a seamless integration of data, technology, analytics, in a way that's seamless to the consumer where they don't feel it's happening. More importantly, you need to provide leadership thinking and a change in legacy cultures to make banking better than it's ever been before. At the end of the day, the question is, are you ready to embrace change? Are you ready to take risks? And are you ready to disrupt yourselves and your company to make a better future? At the end of the day, we have such potential in the industry. The consumer expects us to do banking better and to transform the experience. Thank you.